Welcome to our webinar. The topic for this webinar is full stack development with JavaScript. So we will try to understand if full stack development is possible using JavaScript and the frameworks or tools available in the market which are based on JavaScript. Myself, Neeraj Sharma, I'm working as Vice President here at Nestec. So let's get started. The agenda for this webinar uh, is like this. We'll start with overview and the overview about full stack development. We'll try to understand what is actually the full stack development, and we'll slightly discuss about JavaScript, what is actually JavaScript and what is the history of JavaScript, what was the purpose of inventing JavaScript. Then we'll move on to front-end development, uh, what kind of a framework and what are the importance of JavaScript for front-end development. And after this, we'll discuss about how JS can help us even developing backend. Okay, and then we'll try to understand if we can develop front-end and backend with JS, is there a possibility of testing our application with JS or JS-based tools and technologies? Then we'll try to understand if JS, we are doing all this development and testing stuff with JS. So what are the key factors behind choosing JS, and what are the, let's say, other options comparing to JS? We'll try to understand if JS is enough for us. What are the factors which is making JS a strong candidate for all these stuff what we're trying to do, like front end, back end, and testing. So if we choose JS for our development stuff and testing, so what impact we will see on our ROI? That we'll try to understand again. And finally, we'll take certain question and answer session. Okay, and yeah, let's start. So first, let's focus on full stack development. What is actually full stack development? The skill of developing web application with both front end and back end functionality is known as full stack development. So what does it mean? Front end part and back end part. If let's say we can cover front end and back end functionality in our development, that is covering actually the full stack development. And here we'll not include some, let's say, more extension to it. Let's be stick to front end and back end only, and we'll try to understand in that terms only. Working on front end, I mean the user interface and experience, user experience of a software application, as well as the back end, just like server, databases, and server-side logic, is what a full stack developers do. Okay, if you are, let's say, if you are a full stack developer, you have to take care front end means user interface and user experience, as well as backend stuff, that is like maintaining server, some databases, and some logic in terms of, let's say, in modern world we call it APIs. Okay, so that has to be taken care by full stack developer. Front end and back end can be developed separately. It's not necessary like you have to, you are the, I mean, the only, let's say, sole owner of front end and back end. That's not necessary. Though let's say you have skill of developing front end and back end, that's fine. Then you'll be a full stack developer. Otherwise, front end and back end can be developed separately. And also, there's no, let's say, compulsion to have one tech stack for front end and back end. Okay, you can develop front end and back end with a different tech stack. Okay, so but here in this session, we'll focus on developing front end and back end with JavaScript only. Okay, so there are different options available. You can have different tech stack, but yes, uh, here the focus would be in this session would be developing front end and back end with JavaScript only. Because of their adaptability, they may work alone or in a development team to construct and manage entire web app. So it's not necessary like they have to work with the same team, but yes, they can work independently as well as within a team. If let's say uh, you have let's say same skill set or different skill set. Loosely coupled system prefer to have independent front end and back end. So that what does that mean? I mean loosely coupled system we call uh, loosely coupled system like which are independent. I mean as a standalone unit they complete certain functionality. Okay, so front end and back end can have let's say different implementation altogether and they are loosely coupled. It's not like front end is totally bound on back end development and back end is bound on front end development and vice versa. Okay, they can be developed as a completely loosely coupled system and that's fine. There's no harm and even it's good from testability, maintenance and extension perspective. Server-side scripting languages are limited to backend development because server-side scripting, just like .NET, Java, and some other languages, which which are not primarily developed for browser-based development. They are primarily focused on just like backend development, and that's why we call it server side scripting because they run on server actually, right? So browser do not have support for them, that's why those are limited for backend development only. So I hope you understand now the full stack development. Now uh, let's go through a bit of JS history. So 1995, uh, in the office of Netscape where the first version of JavaScript was born. This was the 1995 year. Okay. Back then, the web was fully static, powered by simple HTML and CSS, and then JS brought that dynamism in the application. So that was the objective of actually JavaScript to add some dynamism on your web applications. At that moment, though, Netscape Navigator was one of the most popular web browser. It is to support that JavaScript was created as a companion language to Java. It, Netscape wanted a language that would look like Java, and that's why they ruled out certain different languages, right, which was existing, and preferred to have a language that would look like Java. Though it's different, but by the naming convention, sometimes people get confused like JavaScript and Java are the same, but they're two different languages, right? So this is the background of JS, and this was to add some dynamism on the browser side. Okay, browser means the client side. Now let's understand the popularity nowadays what JavaScript is carrying. Okay, this screenshot is from Stack Overflow survey 2020, 24, right? So you can understand overall JavaScript is on top like with the 62.3%, and even if you notice like TypeScript that that is also a flavor of JavaScript because when you transpile TypeScript it gets converted to JavaScript and it's only the JavaScript that is doing all the magic for TypeScript under the hood. Okay, if you combine both these figure, so that figure may go somewhere beyond 70 to 80%. So overall programming languages, JavaScript alone is taking approximately let's say 75% uh, popularity of the market. Okay, and that's why it's buzz of the town always. Whatever surveys companies are doing, so JavaScript is on top. Okay, another survey is a GitHub survey, and you can notice like here there are actually 10. I could display the 10 most popular languages, but again JavaScript is again on top. Okay, this is another survey that is based on I think the recent year that GitHub did. So you can notice like again JavaScript is on top. Okay, so if this is a so popular language, right? So what are the options available if we go ahead with JavaScript for front-end development? Okay, so as we already discussed, the primary objective of developing JS was adding some functionality on browser side, and JavaScript is primarily known for adding responsive elements on web pages. So some some functionality, or you can say responsiveness, if you want to add your web pages, you have to use JavaScript because that is the most let's say feasible, you can say available solution or in the current market trend, right? So if you are adding, let's say if this is the option to add dynamicity in the page, right? Then web app development is quite possible, and modern web app development is based on JavaScript frameworks only as on date, right? There's not much beyond JS, so you have to adapt JS only, right, for web app development, at least from uh, uh, browser-based application perspective. You can also do mobile app development and the UI part of mobile app, you can say. With JavaScript, there are certain frameworks that are based on JavaScript only, right? And even the framework which help in developing web app can be utilized for mobile app development. There are some framework, right? Famous framework, right? Game development, JavaScript is quite popular in gaming development as well. Okay, so you can learn or use JavaScript for gaming development, and that is again a front end development part, right? Some popular framework to develop front end are Angular, React.js, Next.js, Vue.js, and there are many more, but they are very popular as on date, right? Front end development, which is supported by JS, is actually nowadays it's supported. It is based on test-driven development approach, and by this, what does it mean? It's very crucial to test your code, whatever code you are writing for your front end, right? Is if that is testable code. Testable means uh, if you can test your functionality, whatever functionality you are writing, right? If that is actually useful for your program, right? You should not write any, let's say, unused code in your application. Okay, even nobody would like to have a code which is of no use in your application. That will simply add to the bundle size of your application, and this that will impact your performance of your app, right? So test driven development is supported. You can easily write test cases for your uh, UI development, right? You can test those functionality, and it's like you have different options to add test cases, unit test cases, even system test casing, right? Using these framework. Okay, so this is front end development is uh, the the major focus that JavaScript uh, was delivering, right? So now let's move on and understand what are the options available if we start using JavaScript for backend development. Actually, this change started uh, with Node.js. So Node.js started the new era for JavaScript-based framework for backend development, right? So these framework help to implement backend, and backend means the the supporting you can say APIs or functionality that is running on server, and that server wants to or let's say some server delivers some functionality to the front end in support, right? So as on date we simply say it API development because majorly we develop APIs when we say backend, right? So you add certain functionality with the JavaScript on server side as well, And the major framework that we use for backend development are Node.js, Express.js, Loopback, Nest.js, Happy.js, Total.js, etc. Right? There are many more actually, right? Many flavor of Node.js even, right? And the good part is even uh, JS is working on backend, right? So you will still get modular code with JavaScript here, right? So module support is there. So the the piece or the functionality that you see, like this functionality is can be delivered, right, and can be implemented independently, can be converted into modules, and any application which is JavaScript based can import that module or that functionality and can start using, and it's work like a breeze, right? So this is very simple. Okay, modular, if you write modular code, is easy to understand, easy to ship, and can be easily reusable. Okay, again, backend, when we say JavaScript at backend, right, backend side, so it also support test-driven development on backend side. So your code would be testable, right? And you can check if this code is utilized with your application within your application or not. There are multiple tools or test framework that can be embedded with backend development, right, with the JS, and you can test your code easily. Okay, you can extend your code easily. Okay, so backend development is quite possible now when the Node.js was invented, right? And now there are multiple flavor or frameworks available that can is easily develop or can work for you for your backend development. So the possibility of backend with JS is now well known, right? You can use any framework. Okay, if we can do, let's say, front end development and back end development both. Okay, so what about testing? If we can, let's understand if we can do testing as well with JavaScript. Okay, as we discuss, both front end and back end support with JavaScript frameworks. Test-driven development is supported for backend as well as front end. So unit testing is quite possible, right? So whatever code you are writing, there are different frameworks, JavaScript frameworks available, tools and technologies available, which supports unit testing for your front end and back end as well, right? And even end-to-end testing and automation is also possible with JavaScript framework. There are a lot of frameworks available nowadays, right, that support end-to-end testing and automation, right, which are based on JavaScript, right? Karma, Jasmine, these are certain famous name that you can use with the front-end stuff. Chai Mocha, again, these are majorly used with the Node.js development, right? Those are very popular framework, and you might have heard those names, right? Now, some recent additions are less Jest and NetWatch. Those are a very good framework by which you can do end-to-end testing of your application, right? These all tools are easy to use, and you need some basic configuration only settings. You just set certain parameters, and it will start working for you. There is no more, let's say, or I'll say not much, let's say, training required. Yeah, definitely there's learning curve, but still you can understand the configuration and it will start working for you. These all frameworks are very lightweight because it's a JavaScript based framework, right? You don't need heavy uh, infrastructure to run this, and that's why these are very popular in terms of configuration and stuff, in terms of installing and all that, right? All right, so front end, back end, and testing is possible with the JavaScript framework. Now let's try to understand why JS. I mean, we have certain other options to do these development, right? So why JS? So the first first point would be there are wide libraries, right? There are certain libraries, or I mean, I'll not say certain. There are multiple libraries openly available because all these ecosystem is open source, right? So if you start using some ready-made library, right, you need not to write. code every time, okay, and that will save your time and maximize your productivity. Okay, that's one point. Second point is a modular code, right? As we mentioned, right, you can create modules of your application. You can divide your application into modules. Those are small piece of code, or you can say with a certain functionality you can create a module. Okay, so these all are pattern based framework what we'll be using with JS, and you can create or use module even, right? So you will get a modular code, so extendability of the system, future maintenance will be very easy. Third point is rapid development, because when you start using these framework, these are actually CLI based system. Okay, you need to run certain commands and some basic architecture would be ready for you. Okay, so this gives a rapid development for you, right? You need not to worry about architecture and all that from scratch. You'll get something ready made, okay, and then start extending that architecture and be able to deliver your application on time. Okay, as we mentioned, like backend, front end, both are these frameworks are creating testable code. So, and these all are all modules are loosely coupled. You can easily test those modules, and even components are testable, right? So that's why we are saying it's completely testable code. Okay, you can easily judge if you are writing right code or not. Okay, if let's say we get all these benefit, also the additional one would be like by let's say following all these framework or the methodologies, right? You will quickly launch your MVP, because with the help of all these facilities, or you can say flexibility to use JS, you'll quickly develop your MVP, and that is the best fit for agile development, because agile is kind of a rapid development, okay, which is kind of a prototype base, so you can quickly develop your prototypes or application or whatever, let's say, and sometime we follow the MVP approach, okay, so that is quite helpful if you start using those JavaScript based framework. Some more benefit are like, because JavaScript is platform independent, right? You not to worry about on which framework, or sorry, on which OS your application will be running. It is universally supported, right? You need not to worry about those OS support and all that. Again, team agility is another benefit, because if let's say you train your team on JavaScript and these framework, right? They can help you develop front end, they can help you develop back end, they can help you testing your code into setting up some testing shoot, right? So all this is because of this universal support of JS and a single, let's say, language JavaScript, right? If your team is aware of, that is enough for delivering end-to-end solutions. Okay, these are certain, let's say, positive points about JS and JS-based framework. If you use, right, what benefit you'll be getting. Okay, now if we are using JavaScript so heavily, okay, like for front end, back end, testing and all that, right? What what would be the impact on our ROI? Okay, the very first point I'll say is it will help in your ideation. Like you can quickly develop prototype with the help of this framework, and yeah, if you have something in mind, like okay, I'll do that. I want to implement that idea and all that, right? You can quickly run certain CLI commands on front and back end and just prepare uh, some solution, the prototype, right, based on your idea. So that will be quick, okay, if you start using those. Okay. Second factor could be money, right? So because you'll be using all open source systems, okay, and modules widely available libraries, okay, so you'll save a lot of cost on upfront cost for any implementation, because you'll use teams, right? You'll share teams for front and back end and testing, okay, and even technology. So it'll save a lot of upfront cost for your prototype or idea or product, whatever, let's say MVP you're trying to develop. Okay. Third factor would be time, because it's rapid development. Okay, as I mentioned, like with certain CLI commands, you'll get something ready-made. Even some architecture will be available for you, and you can quickly extend your solution, right? So that will help you to meet product launch time if you have certain, let's say, go to market strategy. Okay, so this rapid development will help you to quickly deliver your MVP, and you can meet your product launch. Okay. Fourth factor is like because now it's widely used. JavaScript is open source. Okay, and even open source tools are available for complete SDLC based on JavaScript. Okay, to deliver end-to-end solution. Okay, so you can use different tools and technology that are based on JavaScript. Okay, and that is totally open source. Okay, majorly I'll say, right. So these are four factors which will give you definitely which will give you success because JavaScript is now widely acceptable. Okay, there's no, let's say, need of convincing anybody on these frameworks, right, or technology that you'll be using, and these are quite modern stuff as on date. So this will uh, lead you for a success, right? So this is overall summary, like how this will impact your ROI. Okay, if you start using JavaScript based framework. All right. Finally, some questions we have got. Okay, let's try to answer this. The first question is JS the only option for full stack development? Uh, I'll say uh, not completely, but this is one of the best option. Okay, so how I can say I can explain this is, if let's say you don't want to add any uh, dynamicity on your page, right? You don't need dynamic side. You have certain static side only. Okay, so and where you can skip, let's say, JavaScript, then maybe let's say there might be possibility like you can do certain front end work with JavaScript without JavaScript, sorry, and back end with different tech stack. So it's not necessary, but this is one of the best option if you start using JavaScript for full stack development. Second question is, can we build mobile app with JS? Yes, of course you can do this mobile app development, right, with JS. There's some uh, very popular names just like React Native is there, okay, uh, and Ionic is there, okay. Even that support cross-platform development, right? So these are two famous name, right? Though there is some learning curve, right, on top of JavaScript, how to build mobile application with those framework. But yes, you can utilize your JavaScript skill to deliver or develop a mobile application. Third question we have is about which is the best JS framework. So actually, there is no straightforward answer to this. Okay, best JS framework will depend on your need actually, right? Because there are multiple frameworks. Okay, so based on your need, what needs you have, what kind of functionality you want to deliver with these frameworks. Okay, so that will give you some insight about understand this framework well. Okay, use cases, functionality, and then start comparing what are the positive point, what are the size, let's say, of the framework. Okay, what are the rendering technique that framework is using, and if that fits into your need. Okay, so that thing can give you the right answer. There is no right or wrong answer, let's say, for this, right? But yeah, that is conditional. Okay. What is future of JS? That is the another question that we got. See, Actually, nobody can decide the future of anything as on date. Future nobody knows. Okay, but yes, based on the past performance, we can expect the same. Okay, and JS is doing extremely well. Okay, so that's why we are expecting the future is bright for JS because it's expanding uh, very well. Okay, it's mostly, I mean, nowadays, if you could understand this webinar correctly, right? Front end development is possible, back end development is possible with JS, right? Testing is possible with JS. Even if I remember correctly, even there are certain tools based on JavaScript which are being used for DevOps stuff, right? Even there is uh, one OS based on JavaScript, right? The UI is based on JavaScript, though I mean the flavor, the backbone is Linux, but still, uh, JS is supporting this, like the Node.js is supporting uh, that operating system, right? So JS is all round, right? So it's not like, at least for next 5-10 years, I can say like it's a it's a good uh, bet if you start working with JavaScript. Okay. So hope I could answer your questions properly. So thank you very much. That is all for now. And do share your feedback so that we can refine our content more. We can come up with some more meaningful session that will help you. Okay. Thank you again. Bye bye.